Channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, Ananaya Valarin Iman, on your TV and very much on your radio now as well. We're here all the way through until midday with loads on today, including a couple of absolutely massive exclusives.
Yes, make sure that you get in touch with your views as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We'll be reading that out all throughout the show. But first, as usual, here's the latest news.
Good morning. It is just gone 10 o'clock. I'm Rosie Wright in the GB News newsroom. Let's get you up to date. The Met Police say they're in contact with the Cabinet Office over claims a drinks party was held at the Downing Street Garden during the first lockdown. In an email released by ITV, the Prime Minister's private secretary, Martin Reynolds, invited 100 staff to bring your own booze for an evening gathering. Number 10 said it wouldn't be commenting on the allegations during the current inquiry. Government ministers are putting pressure on scientists to allow the UK to follow in the footsteps of the US and cut the COVID isolation period from 7 days to 5. It comes after the UK Health Security Agency admitted it had misunderstood when the isolation period begins in America. In both countries, the start of the onset of symptoms or the day of a positive test, whichever is sooner, is the official start of isolation. Asymptomatic people who test positive for COVID-19 on a lateral flow test in England no longer need a follow-up PCR test from today. They will still be required to self-isolate immediately. The aim is to free up testing capacity for those with symptoms. Doctors in the US have transplanted a pig heart into a human patient for the first time. The experimental surgery took 7 hours to complete in the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore, with medical experts saying it saved 57-year-old David Bennett's life. Surgeons say he's doing well 3 days after the procedure. It is estimated that over 100,000 Americans are currently waiting for an organ transplant. Northern Ireland's health minister has revealed that he's received death threats over the handling of the COVID pandemic. Robin Swan says he's been forced to fortify his home during 2 stressful years in the role. The Ulster Unionist minister also says threats and abuse should not be acceptable in any society.
Well, look, we've had to increase the level of security at home as well. So the biggest challenge, I think, is having to explain that to our 2 children, you know, why that alarm's in the house, why you have to put the bar across that door now, or why those alarms are on certain windows as well. And it shouldn't be, because I'm health minister, you know, it's a challenge that we've had to reflect as a family, you know, at what point, you know, explaining that additional level of security actually is needed because of the job that I do.
Tennis's governing body says the controversy over Novak Djokovic's Australian visa application has been damaging on all fronts. In a statement, the ATP says it welcomes the court's decision to quash Djokovic's visa cancellation, but urged players to get vaccinated to comply with global travel regulations. Djokovic is now training ahead of the Australian Open. Chris Bowers, author of Novak, Djokovic and the Rise of Serbia, told GB News recent events will have affected the star.
He will feel, hang on a second, I'm exercising a right which I ought to be able to exercise. I fully respect people who wish to take the vaccine. Just don't make it compulsory for me to earn my living to have to put this vaccine in my arm. And therefore, for him to end up, especially as he travelled to Australia following the advice he'd been given, I think would have hurt him.
In the UK, retailers have had a bumper Christmas, with sales in December rising 2.1% compared with the year before. The British Retail Consortium say sales of loungewear were up, sales of formal clothing were down, with shoppers expecting future restrictions. Russia has insisted it has no intention of invading Ukraine, despite amassing 100,000 troops at the border. Russian and US officials have been holding talks in Geneva to try to de-escalate tensions, but there's been no sign of progress. Security expert Will Geddes told GB News there's concern on both sides.
100,000 is, I think, more of a demonstration of resilience and being robust, because there's this huge concern about NATO imposing into Ukraine the capabilities to potentially launch missiles into Russia, and equally, NATO's worried about Russia getting into Ukraine.
The United Nations has launched its largest ever aid appeal to raise money for Afghanistan 5 months after the Taliban seized power. The organisation is asking international donors to give £3.6 billion to help the country to fend off what's being described as a humanitarian catastrophe. The UN say around 3/4 of its 40 million population have been plunged into acute poverty.
This is a stopgap, an absolutely essential stopgap measure that we are putting in front of the international community today. Without this being funded, there won't be a future. We need this to be done, otherwise there will be outflow, there will be suffering.
Archaeologists working on the HS2 route have discovered how an Iron Age village turned into a Roman trading town. The settlement was discovered during a dig in Chipping Warden that's believed to have been established around 400 BC. When it expanded during the Roman era, stone buildings and new roads emerged. 300 Roman coins were also uncovered, suggesting that commerce in the area was significant as the village developed into a wealthy town. Well, this is GB News. There'll be more news as it happens. I'll have the headlines for you in half an hour. Now it's back to the point.
Good morning, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Anaya Falarin-Iman, and Patrick Christys on your TV and your radio. We've got a show full of all of the big stories and big discussions that you care about, so here's what's on the menu.
Yes, well, Downing Street is, of course, once again in crisis after the Prime Minister attended a Bring Your Own Booze party during lockdown, which was organised by one of his most senior staff, with over 100 invites extended to people. This was, of course, at a time when the rest of us could only meet one other person. Now, we've got a poll, actually, on this at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, on our Twitter, at GB News, whether or not you think that Boris Johnson should resign. And actually, to be fair as well, email in gbnews@gbnews.uk. Do you even care that there was a party?
Indeed. Well, also armed police have been surrounding a property in Coventry since the early hours of Sunday morning. A standoff continues between a man and his 8-year-old son, and also specialist officers will bring you the latest with our West Midlands reporter, Balvinder Sidhu.
Yeah, concerning stuff that. Now, confirmatory PCR tests are history in England. This is starting today. People without COVID symptoms will no longer need a PCR test to confirm whether or not they have COVID. We'll be outside a testing centre in the capital later on. We also have quite a big exclusive on this, some big ideas as to how we can now standardise COVID testing. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Are we learning to live with COVID finally? We'll see. Well, we have lots of that coming up all across the programme, so make sure to get in touch, as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. But first, Patrick gives his views on the NHS and learning to live with COVID.
The NHS has broken down. It's not my words, but the words of an emergency worker who is at their wit's end. Guidelines state that it should take 8 minutes for an ambulance to arrive if the call is life-threatening or an emergency. Not only are people waiting hours for an ambulance now, some dying in excruciating pain on the floor of their own homes. But the latest debacle is this. People are getting an ambulance, being taken to hospital, then dying in the back of it as they wait to be admitted. It's reported that at times there can be around 25 ambulances waiting outside just one single hospital. And some crews are waiting up to 9 hours to offload their patients. Can you imagine that feeling of being in the back of an ambulance, knowing that you're probably on the way out, knowing that just yards away is the hospital, the gates of safety, the cure, and you're not allowed inside? What are the reasons behind this, I wonder? Well, bed shortages is reportedly one of them. The number of beds was reduced to increase distancing during the COVID crisis. That's one of the reasons they built those Nightingale hospitals, which were then closed, naturally. Some of them do still have the capacity to be operational. More than 1 in 6 NHS trusts across England has declared a critical incident due to the COVID pressures in recent weeks. They've added that the Omicron variant is putting a very real pressure on the health service. But I don't really see how bed shortages due to COVID can be the main problem. Figures published on the 29th of December showed COVID-19 hospital admissions are actually down more than 50% compared to this time last year. A total of 8,500 people were in hospital with coronavirus on the 27th of December, a huge drop in the massive 19,277 admissions recorded on the same day in 2020. So I think it's reasonable to suggest that actually one of the main reasons for the admissions crisis is staff shortages. The amount of health staff now self-isolating. Recent data from NHS England shows that 39,142 NHS staff at hospital trusts in England were absent for COVID-19 reasons on January the 2nd. That's up, wait for this, 59% on the previous week. And more than 3 times, by the way, the number actually at the start of December, when that was just at 12,508. As it stands, we're now making NHS staff relentlessly self-isolate because of Omicron. They're doing lateral flow tests all the time, PCR tests as well. Yeah, those very same PCR tests that can detect dead virus in your system for up to 90 days after you've had COVID. The government now seriously has to consider, in my opinion, removing the requirement for NHS staff to be vaccinated. I know that many of you would hate that idea. I know that many of you would hate to be treated by someone who hasn't taken the COVID vaccine, and I can completely understand that. But if it's a choice between that and not being treated at all, or there are not enough staff to treat your elderly relatives, then would that change your mind? Because can we really afford to lose the amount of staff like King's College London will? One of London's biggest hospitals, this is. They could lose 10% of its staff if the government doesn't change its mandatory vaccination rules for NHS workers. There's also another thing, isn't there? It's a really bizarre situation, this. But we do have to now consider whether or not NHS staff should be forced to take time off work if they have Omicron. I know it sounds nuts, doesn't it? How can we even consider having people potentially with COVID treating hospital patients? Well, if we don't, then perhaps thousands of patients won't get treated at all. And I know this sounds insane, but I think it's just worth asking the question, especially if we're going to have to learn to live with this thing, and Omicron is reportedly milder. I can't help but wonder whether or not we're now starting to actually see the impact of our original response to this pandemic. And I think this is really where we are. When we lock down, when we shut everything down, certain things happen. Things like, 740,000 people not being referred for a cancer diagnosis, like people not being able to get a GP appointment, like operations being cancelled, like people being misdiagnosed with illnesses over Zoom and FaceTime. I wonder how many people in the back of those ambulances now waiting outside hospitals are now more sick because they couldn't get treatment a year ago. We'll never know. The government solution to this is to strike a deal that sees some patients treated in private hospitals. Well, how does that solve the problem? That surely just means that people paying for their private healthcare might now have to wait longer for their treatments. And of course, the irony there is that many people are paying for private healthcare now for the very first time only because they couldn't get treated on the NHS. The government released a statement saying that they were, get this, increasing NHS capacity by building on-site Nightingale hubs. Well, hang on a minute. The taxpayer forked out £500 million for the original Nightingale hospitals, and they were left empty. Why? Because we didn't have the staff to man them, did we? So given that we currently have a staffing crisis, Forgive me for thinking that this current Nightingale bright idea might not really be a goer. The fact is, it's a bad time to get ill, and money isn't the solution. If our NHS doesn't learn to live with COVID, or if our government doesn't let it learn to live with COVID, then tens of thousands of people may well die, but not because of COVID. Yeah, some of the things I said there, by the way, just to qualify quickly, you know, I do understand that a lot of you will not want to be treated by someone who's not had the COVID jab.
Well, I think we would have. I think it's right to have concerns about that. But I actually, also, if you've had COVID, then you may well have as many antibodies as somebody that has had the vaccine, and so that is also a possibility there. But to me, learning to live with COVID means that effectively no longer testing. You know, it essentially means that as with the flu, if you have symptoms, as is normal if you have the flu, then you would kind of stay at home because you're too unwell. But if you are asymptomatic, then you kind of get on with your life. And actually, we have a yearly booster program so that people, you know, do not have most severe symptoms. And hopefully we have other treatments, such as an anti-COVID pill. Like if you have the flu, you might take Lemsip or something like that. So to me, I just think learning to live with COVID is stopping testing, getting rid of vaccine passports, which, you know, I was in a Shoreditch over the weekend, and there are vaccine passports now fully rolled out in many nightclubs and bars across the country.
Yes, another excuse not to go to Shoreditch, isn't it? That and the people riding around on penny farthings and all the avocado.
But you know, stop testing, in my view, stop vaccine passports, and stop mandatory vaccinations for NHS workers who have been working for 2 years, you know, much harder than many other people, like politicians, for example.
Absolutely, and this is part of the problem as well. We can't have people dying in the backs of ambulances waiting to go into hospitals relentlessly all the time. It cannot happen. It's not functional. We need to have solutions. But anyway, in an exclusive GB News interview, an emergency responder in the east of England has claimed that hospital patients are dead by the time they get there now. And this is, of course, what we were talking about. This is amid a 4 to 9 hour delay at full emergency departments.
Yes, the staff member whose identity is being protected says pressure on the NHS is leaving, quote, at times 20 to 25 ambulances waiting outside just one hospital. It comes after nearly 20 hospitals have declared critical incidents in England. Staff shortages are driving the crisis, as the emergency responder told us.
Patients are dying every day because ambulances can't get to them in time. And patients in hospital are dying because we don't have sufficient staffing. This is happening every day, and it's a danger. And the NHS is not breaking. The NHS is broken because people are dying. At times, there are 20-plus ambulances waiting out the back of A&E because we just don't have room to offload them. Even if we have a cardiac arrest, so you stop breathing, a lot of the time, hospitals don't even have room for you. Staff are resuscitating patients on the back of ambulances right outside emergency departments. Doctors are having to go on the ambulance to try and save their life, and this is happening all over the UK. Things are really bad. It becomes dangerous, and then what ambulance services are having to do is they're having to divert ambulances to different hospitals. Ambulances are waiting outside for, 9, 10, 11 hours.
Yes, well, we want to thank that responder, of course, for talking to us. But do get in touch now, ladies and gentlemen, please, with your stories, if you have them. We'll be revisiting this later this morning. But right now, it is time for another major story.
Yes, well, the biggest story of the day. Around 100 Downing Street employees received an invite to a socially distanced garden party on the 20th of May 2020, 2 months into the first and harshest national COVID lockdown.
Well, there you go. I think we can see it there. That was an email there that was inviting people. Of course, it was. Now, in this leaked email released by ITV News, the employees were asked by Boris Johnson's principal private secretary to bring their own booze and make the most of the lovely weather in the number 10 garden.
At the time, only 2 people were allowed to socialise outside under the national restrictions, but it is understood that around 40 staff met for drinks and food from 6 p.m. that evening, including the Prime Minister and his wife, Carrie.
Yeah, well, look, the Prime Minister has so far refused to answer whether or not he was attending the gathering. Police are investigating the incident, but I also want to know whether or not you guys care, right? Because I have a strong feeling that some of you really will. I also have a strong feeling that some of you really, really won't. But helping us, I know you do, helping us break down this right now, we've got Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. and Darren McCaffrey as well, of course, our political editor, so all the editors there. Let's start with you, Mark. Talk us through this investigation by the police, please.
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is it isn't an investigation at this stage, not a formal investigation. Scotland Yard have confirmed, of course, that they are aware of these widespread reports surrounding this party that took place in May of 2020 in the Downing Street Garden. They are, they say, in touch with the Cabinet Office with a view to determining whether, of course, there will be an investigation, a more formal investigation into this. Now, the reason I say it's not a formal investigation at this stage is you'll remember, of course, Scotland Yard was asked to investigate the allegations of Christmas parties in and around Downing Street in December of 2020. After a brief period where they said they would determine whether they are going to go ahead and launch a formal inquiry, they came and said that they didn't believe it was an appropriate use of their resources to retrospectively start investigating those parties, alleged parties in December of 2020. So it may be that at the end of the day we get a similar outcome to these initial investigations or inquiries that they're making of the Cabinet Office, because what you have certainly in the first instance is that civil servant Sue Gray, who is carrying out that probe that was commissioned by the Prime Minister into the December 2020 parties, who will now take on board, we're told, the allegations of parties in May of 2020. So any formal police investigation may be on hold anyway until after she comes back, and we're told it could be at least a couple of weeks before Sue Gray is back with the findings of what she has determined happened in both December and now, of course, May of 2020.
Thank you, Mark. And just bringing you in, Darren, I mean, what are the political implications of this? The PM has so far refused to answer whether he attended the party. I mean, it does seem to be gaining momentum again when the Prime Minister perhaps thought that it had all calmed down before the new year. I mean, what implications has this got to have now for the Prime Minister?
I think pretty serious implications in many regards, Anaya, and I say that because you're right, this is probably the most damaging of the allegations we've seen around alleged parties inside Downing Street, not least of all because looking at that email, it's pretty irrefutable to suggest that it was not a party. Bring your own booze is not something you do at work. Also, the allegation that Boris Johnson and his wife, Carrie Symonds, were in attendance at that party makes it even trickier for the Prime Minister. In fact, many suggesting this morning, why is the Prime Minister carrying out an investigation into an event that he apparently attended? Surely he knows if he was in his own garden drinking or necking back some wine. And in addition to that, I think the big question for the Conservative Party at large is many had thought that this has died down, this has kind of gone away over Christmas. That is clearly not now the case, and there will be an awful lot of attention, of course, on Sue Gray and that investigation. But let's get a sense of what is happening inside the Conservative Party. Paul Hawkins, a reporter, has been looking at some of the details of what the Conservative MPs have been saying. What have you been hearing?
Well, at the moment, we've heard from Michael Fabricant on GBNews this morning. He's kind of come out defending the Prime Minister, really, pointing out that there are a lot of people inside that building who work together, very close together inside, that no outsiders were invited to this party on May the 20th, and that they were working very hard to roll out the vaccine programme, or to get it ready, I should say, for later in the year. So he's kind of come out defending the government, but at the moment, very little in terms of critical reaction from Conservative MPs. That's what we're waiting to hear from today. Of course, we're going to expect Labour to come out and attack the Prime Minister on this. This morning, they issued a press release attacking his personal integrity, stepping it up, that attack, from the rule that there's from the line of attack that there's one rule for them, one rule for us. They're now going personally for the Prime Minister, but you'd expect that from Labour. What we're looking for now is Conservative MP reaction, because only 15% of Conservative MPs have to write to the 1922 Backbench Committee to trigger a leadership election. As you said, they were publicly very angry about this before Christmas. The anger seemed to dissipate away. The mood seemed to be that they were willing to give the Prime Minister one more chance. but now with this latest leak, that it will only fuel the fire again and re-stoke the criticism of the Prime Minister and perhaps potentially trigger a leadership election. It'll be interesting to see whether he can ride out the next 48 hours hiding behind the Sugray investigation. Indeed, that's another line of attack from Labour.
Yeah, indeed. Paul, thank you very much indeed for that. And Sugray is carrying out an investigation. Downing Street saying that they're not willing to comment on this until she reports. But that's going to be a pretty difficult position for the Prime Minister, I feel, Patrick and Anaya, to hold, not least of all because he'll have to face journalists in the days to come. As Ruth Davison's been pointing out this morning, you should know if you're at a party in your own back garden, you don't need an investigator to investigate that. And also, we've got Prime Minister's Question Time tomorrow, and that's going to be pretty spicy, I might suggest.
Well, indeed. Well, thank you, Darren McCaffrey, our political editor. There was also Paul Hawkins, our national reporter, talking to Darren there, and also Mark White, our Home and Security Affairs editor, discussing some of the other implications of this story.
Yes, we'll be back with you guys again at 11 o'clock, I understand. But anyway, right after the break, armed police are in a standoff with a man in a house in Coventry. Our East Midlands reporter brings us the very latest on that. We're also going to be doing a head-to-head as well on MPs' pay rises. But look, all of that comes after the weather.
Hello again. A bright day with some sunshine across northern parts of the country. Cloudier skies in the south, grey and drizzly for southern parts of England and South Wales. Because of this weather front clearing, it's a weak feature, but it is bringing a lot of low, misty cloud. Once it clears, sunshine is to the north of it, and high pressure builds in for the rest of the week across southern parts of the country. But a keen breeze will be felt across northern Scotland, along with a few showers for the north and northwest. Meanwhile, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, much of North Wales seeing long spells of sunshine. But further south again, that's where we've got the extensive low cloud, some drizzle, perhaps even some moderate bursts of rain for East Anglia and the southeast. 11 or 12 in the south, much colder further north, although feeling more pleasant, I suspect, with those sunny skies. Now, we're going to keep the keen breeze across Scotland overnight, as well as Northern Ireland. That will push in some extra cloud. Northern England seeing that cloud as well, but the cloud in the south clears, and as that clears and winds drop out, well, we'll see an extensive frost and temperatures as low as -4, -5 Celsius in sheltered spots. Also, some fog patches, mainly around river valleys, sheltered rural parts, and they'll fairly quickly lift, I think, during the morning. Then plenty of sunshine for the southern half of the UK, a marked contrast compared to today. But cloudier skies for parts of northern England, especially the northwest, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, along with that keen breeze. It's going to be milder actually in the north, but a bit colder further south, with temperatures closer to average here. But again, with light winds, plenty of sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. And that's the way things continue for the rest of the week, actually. The southern half of the UK will see sunny spells by day, but increasingly fog forming overnight, and that fog will be dense at times, perhaps continuing through the day on Friday and Saturday in places. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, breezier and milder.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Yes, well, good morning, everybody. It is just gone 10:28, I believe. And this is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, and Inaya Folarin Iman, right here on GB News. Of course, we're live on your telly and on your radio this morning as well.
Yeah, so in the news, a street in Coventry has been cordoned off since the early hours of Sunday morning as the police have sustained concerns about the welfare of a man and his 8-year-old son.
Yeah, well, the standoff on the street has been ongoing with armed police officers at the scene, and this is continuing now across the Earlsdon area of the city.
Yes, our West Midland reporter, Balvinder Sidhu, has the story. Thank you for joining us this morning, Bal. Could you let us know the latest on this story?
Well, I'm just outside the cordon. You can just see it behind me. Further up this street is where a man has been having a standoff with armed police for more than 50 hours now. He's a 41-year-old man, believed to have weapons, and he's with an 8-year-old boy, his son, inside the property. Negotiations are ongoing, and meanwhile, police have extended the cordon in this area, not just to this road, but the neighbouring road here this morning as well. Now, this is the longest standoff that I know of in this particular area. It's been going on for nearly 3 days. Police were called to the property in the early hours of Sunday morning to do a safe and well check. But since then, they've been in negotiations, and armed police have been called to the area. There's dozens of officers here. There are pictures of a police marksman outside the property with a weapon waiting. And people who live within the vicinity of this house have been told not to leave without a police escort. So all of the residents near this particular property, for their own safety, have been advised to stay inside. So they've been inside for 2 days, unless, of course, they need essentials, whereby they are then being helped by police. The local primary school is also closed, and the library, which I'm stood next to, is being used as a rest centre for any residents who are concerned, and for the police as well. The police have been working throughout the day and night trying to bring this situation to some sort of a resolution. But meanwhile, people who live in this area, I mean, just to tell you a little bit about Earlsdon, it's probably the most affluent part of Coventry. It's usually a place where you see lots of young families, parents enjoying a coffee with their newborn. It's not the kind of place where you would see armed police in this number for this number of days as well.
No, indeed. Well, look, Bal, thank you very, very much for bringing us the latest there. It's obviously an incredibly concerning situation, and it's been going on for an incredibly long time. Balvinder Sidhu there, of course, who'll be bringing us the latest on that throughout the day. Scary stuff, eh?
Yeah, no, it is really worrying.
Gosh.
I mean, it's very rare that you hear stories like that happening, so...
No, absolutely. Well, look, let's have a look at some of your views now. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Bear in mind as well, there is a poll running at the moment, which is whether or not you think Boris Johnson should resign. Lots of you simply don't care about... this is at GB News on Twitter, sorry. Lots of you just don't seem to really care about this. If these parties are all Labour can complain about, then God help them. And that's from Richard. But you really do care, don't you?
No, the thing is, I think that we have to lay it out very clearly. You know, some young people, some students were fined £10,000 or some obscene amounts of money that they clearly do not have for holding a party when they are very unlikely to be seriously ill or adversely affected from COVID-19. There were people that were not able to see their dying relatives in hospital. There were people for all sorts of reasons, you know, have not been able to see their family for years. I mean, I think we've really got to put into perspective what has happened over the last 2 years. And the people that were implementing those policies are having bring your own booze, 100 people plus parties in the middle of number 10 while people are actually isolating alone at home. I think that is rightfully horrifying and disgusting for a lot of people.
Well, look, what do you think on this then? Because a lot of people are saying, I mean, look, we have had here, I think Downing Street is a disgrace. So there is, look, there is a range of views, that's sure. But look, also a lot of you getting in touch about the NHS ambulance waiting times. And I floated the idea now, should we stop testing NHS staff? Should we stop them being mandated to have the vaccine, of course, because that could knock some of them out of our system? And also, frankly, how do we try to help our NHS learn to live with COVID? We're talking about all of that and much, much more. But yes, after the break, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has released his plans to help save the Union in Scotland. It's a very, very, very
interesting plan.
Strange plan. You are going to want to find out what it is, by the way. I'm not sure you're going to like it. We've also got a big exclusive now on new plans for PCR testing, so don't you go anywhere.
A very good morning. It is 10:33. I'm Rosie Wright in the GB newsroom. Let's get you up to date. The Met Police say they're in contact with the Cabinet Office over claims a drinks party was held at Downing Street during the first lockdown. In an email that was released by ITV, the Prime Minister's private secretary, Martin Reynolds, invited 100 staff to bring your own booze for an evening outdoor gathering. Number 10 said it wouldn't be commenting on the allegations during the current inquiry into lockdown parties. Government ministers are putting pressure on scientists to allow the UK to follow in the footsteps of the US and cut the COVID isolation period from 7 days to 5. Well, it comes after the UK Health Security Agency admitted it had misunderstood when the isolation period begins in America. In both countries, it starts at the onset of symptoms or the day of a positive test, whichever is sooner. Well, as of today, asymptomatic people who test positive for COVID-19 in England on a lateral flow test no longer need to have a follow-up PCR. They will still be required to self-isolate immediately. The aim is to free up testing capacity for those with symptoms. Doctors in the US have transplanted a pig heart into a human patient for the first time. The experimental surgery took 7 hours to complete in the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore, with medical experts saying it saved 57-year-old David Bennett's life. Surgeons say he's doing well 3 days after the procedure. It's estimated over 100,000 Americans are currently waiting for an organ transplant. Tennis's governing body, the ATP, say controversy over Novak Djokovic's Australian visa application has been damaging on all fronts. In a statement, it welcomed the court's decision to quash his visa cancellation, but urged players to get vaccinated to comply with global travel regulations. Djokovic is now training ahead of the Australian Open. You're up to date. This is GB News. I'll bring you more news as it happens. Now, back to the point.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's 10:37. This is To The Point with Patrick, Christys, and Anaya Flower and Iman on GB News. We're live on your TV and your radio this morning.
Yes, we are. Now, rumours have abounded this week that Labour may run, get this, pro-Scottish independence candidates as well. But we've got, that's obviously in Scotland, as they desperately try to seek a win at the next general election. More on that later. But from today, people in England who test positive for COVID on lateral flow tests will no longer need a follow-up PCR to begin their isolation period. So if they do not have symptoms, that is. Now, it comes amid speculation that the isolation period could be cut even further.
Yes, our London reporter is outside a testing centre in Kilburn. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, Alice Porter. I mean, tell us more about these changes from today.
Hi there, good morning. Yes, these changes come into effect from today, and what it means is that for people who are asymptomatic, so if you don't have symptoms, you no longer have to take the additional PCR test. So up until now, if you took a lateral flow and it said it was positive, you then had to take an additional PCR test. So you no longer have to do that and have that extra confirmation. And the reason is quite simple, is COVID cases are so high at the moment that if you take a lateral flow and it turns out to be positive, then most likely you do have coronavirus. So it is not needed to take that additional resource because, of course, it is much longer to get that process. It has to be processed in a laboratory. And at the moment in the UK, they can process 800,000 PCR tests a day. But the problem was, in the lead up to Christmas in December, those laboratories were almost at maximum capacity. So it's hoped this move will also sort of free up those laboratories and also those PCR tests for people who urgently need them and have symptoms. So crucially, if you have symptoms, you still do need to take a PCR. But what we're also seeing here, there's also been quite a recent sort of change in awareness really about lateral flows. I think initially they were seen to be less reliable and they had quite a lot of bad press, but actually they just work in very different ways to PCRs. And the UK Health Security Agency say that they are actually the most effective way of establishing whether someone has coronavirus if they are asymptomatic. This process would also cut the isolation period for people because at the moment it's when you get your PCR test that then your isolation period begins there. So it's an important move in that regard too. But critics do say that it will make it harder to establish whether there are any new variants because of less people taking PCRs.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just ask, what's it actually like there where you are now? Is it looking pretty busy, or what's the situation?
It's quite quiet, actually. I've just seen a trickle of people coming in. I mean, I don't know how... I presume maybe in the lead-up to Christmas it was a lot busier, and I think we are starting to see, particularly in London, a drop. I mean, 2 out of 3 boroughs in London are seeing cases drop. So I think the really high numbers we were seeing before Christmas with 1 in 20 people in London having coronavirus, we're now starting to see that drop in London, which is good news. So, yeah, it's been more of a trickle of people coming into the centre in Kilburn today, but I think what we are seeing is the wave actually peaking in more in other parts of the country, particularly in the northwest.
All right, Alice, well, thank you very much, and thank you for you managing to enunciate yourself properly over some pretty heavy traffic there as well. A couple of points, it must be said. Alice Porter there, our London reporter, giving you the very latest on the PCR issues. Now, we are going to be revisiting this, actually, fingers crossed, relatively shortly, because we've got a bit of an exclusive coming up, anyway, on potential plans to standardise global PCR testing and global lateral flow tests, coming up with a solution, because at the moment it's just travel chaos, isn't it? Everywhere you go, well, what do they need to get into the country? What do we need to do to get out of the country? This, that and the other. It's bad for travel and it's bad for business.
You have a bit of experience of that.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. But anyway, I think we're going to delve in now to some of your views, I believe. So GB Views at GBNews.uk. A lot of you, again, there is this Downing Street party. People are going, oh, please stop talking about it. But then it's the most emailed in thing that we have all the time. And indeed, we had a Twitter poll, ladies and gentlemen. It was online for less than an hour, I believe, yes. And I think it's only got a couple of minutes left on it. Almost 6,000 of you taken part, so it's kicked off. The latest results. Should Boris Johnson resign over this Partygate? 57.4% of you have said yes. So, there we go. 54.7% of you... Sorry, 57.4% of you said yes. But have a look at some of these comments now here. I don't care about parties. I don't care about wallpaper. You do, though, don't you?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you know, I think that people should have been able to have socially distanced parties, or even parties in general, if you could have proven that you had a negative test. And I don't see what's wrong with having a party in principle. And I think, actually, it really shows the absurdity of so many of the rules that were unnecessarily restrictive, constraining, that actually the people that were implementing it couldn't really fully buy into it themselves. And I think it's absolutely right and justified for people to call out the hypocrisy and ask questions of our leadership. And people that are actually making quite transformative decisions over the country, if they cannot follow the rules themselves, then I think that knocks confidence in the system altogether.
Absolutely. Well, look, we're going to veer back now to what we were talking about there, about a PCR test. And it's our absolute pleasure, actually, to have Chris Southworth on. Now, he's Secretary-General of the United Kingdom's International Chamber of Commerce. Now, this was the group of people behind as well, things like vaccine passports, really just trying to come up with ideas, essentially, for how to get business and, frankly, I suppose, people moving as well, and coming up with solutions during this crisis. So thank you very much for joining us now. Great to have you on the show. Now, obviously, one of the things that has been kicking off at the moment has been with this PCR testing, hasn't it? Whether or not it's a bit too sensitive, it's picking up dead virus, etc., and the inconsistencies in different countries' requirements, really, for you to get in. And I was hoping maybe I could get your take on where you stand on all of this.
Well, we've said from the beginning that we need a consistent approach to testing and vaccination. This is ultimately, COVID is a global problem that needs a global solution. At the moment, our testing regime is inconsistent. It's poorly enforced. It's very bureaucratic and very expensive, particularly expensive in comparison to what other countries are paying for the same sort of testing regime. So I think if we move to a system where we have one simple testing regime at low cost that everybody understands, then we've got a better chance of success in managing the virus.
At the moment, the current setup, how bad is the PCR system in terms of, for business, I suppose, for people moving around, trying to get on with commerce?
Well, it's bureaucratic, isn't it? I mean, you go one place for a test, you go to different countries that have different testing regimes. You've got to have locator forms, PCR tests, lateral flow tests. If you imagine that you're a business person moving across borders for meetings or doing deals or whatever you're doing in terms of business and trade, then it's just very bureaucratic and slow and acts as a disincentive, actually, for doing business overseas. So, I think at some point, quickly, really, we need a much simpler regime that's, like I say, low cost. It's very, very expensive in comparison to other countries. So I think we need to, find a better way of managing the testing process. And on the global vaccines, by the way, we still need action on global vaccines. I've raised that one or two times before. It's still a problem that needs a solution, but we can't solve a global problem by just looking at our shoelaces and looking at solutions for ourselves. We've got to look at this as a global problem that needs a global solution. We're the second biggest funder of the World Health Organization and really should be using that as leverage to then broker, global deals where we have simple, consistent regimes worldwide, not just for the UK.
So the regimes that we're talking about now, if we're really going to kind of standardise globally when it comes to testing and entry requirements and stuff, what are some of these ideas then? Because some people say, well, a lateral flow test isn't going to be good enough, I suppose. And some people say, well, we can't use the PCR test because they're part of the problem now, aren't they?
Well, the first problem is vaccines, isn't it? We have large chunks of the world which are still unvaccinated. This latest outbreak of COVID, the Omicron, it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us that it's come from the one region of the world with the least vaccinations, Africa. So, it's in our interest to help support African countries to up the vaccination rates, as it is to other parts of the world who also have low vaccination rates. And that will give us a baseline immunity. And then if you look at the data, the bigger problem is not so much the testing, it's the unvaccinated who are then taking up hospital beds. So, it's more efficient, really, I think, to focus in on the unvaccinated and how do we get those vaccination rates up worldwide, including the UK, and then just have a very simple testing regime, whether that's, PCR tests or lateral flow tests, but, a cheap, low-cost, simple system that we all understand and apply that at a global level, not just in the UK.
Indeed. Well, solutions we're talking now, which is nice. Don't bring us problems, bring us solutions. That's what we want.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Chris Southwell. He is the Secretary General of United Kingdom International Chamber of Commerce, and giving us an update then on some of the changes with regards to lateral flow testing.
Yes. Now, just quickly, we've had a couple of emails in. I've gone through a bit of a tie debacle so far today, ladies and gentlemen. I appear to have gone out and bought the wrong size shirt, and what that means is that I was asphyxiating myself with the tie initially. I then thought, maybe I'll undo the top button. That then looked a bit scruffy, and then I got angry, and I've thrown the tie over there. So that's why I now look like this. I hope we can all move on and forget about the whole thing. Moving away.
Indeed. Well, tennis star and current world number one, Novak Djokovic, has run into quite a bit of trouble in Australia recently.
Yes, he has. Well, the Serbian athlete travelled to the country to participate in the Australian Open, which begins on the 17th, which is Monday. So if he wins, he'll become the most successful men's player in history. But, of course, he was detained, wasn't he, after confusion surrounding the government's COVID policy.
Yes, after being detained, reportedly arrested and cleared by a judge. There's another obstacle for Djokovic. Australia's Immigration Minister Alex Hawke could personally overturn the visa that he's been granted. A decision is expected over the next couple of days.
Well, now let's speak to Sania Pavlovic, who's a Serbian-born American journalist. Thank you very, very much. You're a political scientist as well, and White House correspondent, woman of many hats. Fantastic stuff. Your business card must be massive. But anyway, there you go. You've been speaking with the tennis superstar's father, I understand, so you could fill us in with what's going on there, please.
So they are waiting for the final decision. Yesterday, Novak Djokovic was one step from getting arrested by the Australian government, who at the last minute decided to wait and, see if they're going to make this highly contentious political decision right now to expel from the country the best tennis player in the world. And if they do so, in my view, they are going to undermine the integrity and also reputation of the Commonwealth and everything the British Queen stands for and she stood for the last, decades when it comes to democratic values and upholding democracy in the Western world.
Yes, indeed. And it is a serious issue that he's highlighting now, isn't it? I mean, Novak Djokovic, is he going to be in any kind of decent shape to actually play, do you think? I mean...
Well, the stress.
The stress and being holed up in essentially a detention centre for a while, wasn't he?
He is mentally extremely strong individual, and I believe that this is going to motivate him even further, that if he is allowed to stay, to win the championship and show the whole world who he is as a human being, as a person. Remember what's relevant to this country. He won Wimbledon multiple times. He was awarded for his achievement in philanthropy by Prince William, a Centrepoint Award. So he is someone who not only is the best tennis player in the world and an athlete, but he's also extremely good human being who is doing a lot for charity, not only in Serbia or UK, but worldwide.
Indeed. Well, it's a very, very tricky situation, of course, and it's, it's been a bit of massive ordeal, hasn't it? What's the latest with the kind of arrest claims that have been taking place over there now?
Well, they were true. They were coming to arrest him. The Serbian supporters in Australia surrounded the police, and I believe that the assessment at that time, security assessment, was that this can turn out in a very, contentious political, event. And if they do this, Australian government is going to really show to the whole world that they are the bad guys. And if they do so, it's going to be a politically damaging decision for the Australian government, who claims to be democracy. If they do this, then they are a fake democracy. And for me, this is the choice between autocracy and democracy. And, listen, his legal rights, his right to legal representation have been denied at the airport. We could see this, factual, layout from the Judge Kelly. So are you claiming that you're democracy while denying the best tennis player in the world or any citizen for that matter, right to legal representation. He has been advised against legal representation and was told that it is not in his best interest to have the lawyers because the lawyers cannot do anything about it, which was clearly not true. And I think was the crucial point that decided for Judge Kelly, because this is not Guantanamo Bay. This is a tennis world champion tournament, and what they're doing is absolutely outrageous and shameful for the Western liberal order, to be quite frank about it.
And also, finally, Cindy, I mean, what has been some of the reaction in Serbia to this news?
Well, in Serbia, of course, everyone is outraged. Novak Djokovic is someone who is for the first time, able to show a good face of Serbia. Serbia had a very bad reputation because of the wars during the 90s, and he is really the biggest pride of the Serbian nation and the only person who can really on a global level invite people to come and see Serbia. So he's not only a tennis player, he's also a cultural ambassador of the Serbian nation.
Well, thank you, Sinija Pavlovic, Serbian-born American journalist, giving us an update there with all of the controversy surrounding Novak Djokovic in Australia right now.
Yes, well, look, we're going to move away. We're going to finish the hour with a couple of little different things. So leading dancers and directors say the classic ballet tutu is a costume that is both physically and artistically restrictive, believe it or not. Of course, regular viewers of this show will know that I used to do ballet until I was 8 years old, and I must say I always had an issue with the tutu.
Did you?
Yeah, I did find the tutu very restrictive.
Wait, no, but did you actually do ballet?
Yeah.
I did actually ballet when I was younger.
Well, there you go, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was trying to break down barriers in society from a very young age.
Well, anyway, creative director of the UK National Youth Ballet, Joe Meredith, said that while tutus like the ones donned by the Sugar Plum Fairy will always have their place, gender-neutral outfits will keep ballet looking fresh and exciting while providing the comfort to look ballerinas.
Well, indeed. And it's about time too. Look, can I just say, we've had some massive monumental societal achievements, but the removal of the tutu from mainstream ballet will, I think, always go down as one of the best pinnacles of human engineering.
I mean, there isn't a gender-neutral ballerina outfit. I mean, it's the ballerina one that women wear is incredibly feminine. It's very elegant. It's quite demeaning, I think, to femininity in women to say that it's gender neutral.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, why don't we embrace femininity and we embrace masculinity? Why do we have to make everything just one neutral blob?
Yeah, well, speaking of masculinity, a giant bronze statue of a naked man, which has been hailed as East Anglia's answer to the Angel of the North, has also been called dangerous, right, to motorists, and indeed a road safety hazard, because people can't stop staring at it, apparently.
Yes, well, the 26-foot tall Yachtsman statue was unveiled at the end of the year and stands tall and very naked in an aptly named Cockfield Hall. Apologies if anyone is offended by that. Patrick.
It's a family show.
In Oxford, in East Suffolk. Well, I think I'm a bit speechless. No wonder motorists have been
I mean, you can't
shocked.
take your eyes off it, can you?
It is shocking indeed.
Yes. Well,
let's see it again.
I think let's want us about a phrase. Let's get it up one more time. There it is.
But for those listening on radio, it's a tall.
It's a tall statue with a massive penis, isn't it? That's what it is. Let's just stop beating around the bush. Oh, I can't. There's nothing. Nothing you can say. Nothing you can say. That's what it is. It's what it is. That's why we're doing it. It's why we're doing the story. You might as well be able to say out loud. All right, we're all adults. Okay.
Yes, I do feel sorry for motorists. That would shock me indeed.
Well,
Keep all of your thoughts coming in to us, GBViews at gbnews.uk. We'll have more of today's top stories and plenty for you and your views after the break.
See you soon.
Hello again. A bright day with some sunshine across northern parts of the country. Cloudier skies in the south, grey and drizzly for southern parts of England and South Wales. Because of this weather front clearing, it's a weak feature, but it is bringing a lot of low, misty cloud. Once it clears, sunshine is to the north of it, and high pressure builds in for the rest of the week across southern parts of the country. But a keen breeze will be felt across northern Scotland, along with a few showers for the north and northwest. Meanwhile, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, much of North Wales seeing long spells of sunshine. But further south again, that's where we've got the extensive low cloud, some drizzle, perhaps even some moderate bursts of rain for East Anglia and the south east. 11 or 12 in the south, much colder further north, although feeling more pleasant, I suspect, with those sunny skies. Now we're going to keep the keen breeze across Scotland overnight as well as Northern Ireland. That will push in some extra cloud. Northern England seeing that cloud as well, but the cloud in the south clears, and as that clears and winds drop out, well, we'll see an extensive frost and temperatures as low as -4, -5 Celsius in sheltered spots. Also, some fog patches, mainly around river valleys, sheltered rural parts, and they'll fairly quickly lift, I think, during the morning. Then plenty of sunshine for the southern half of the UK, a marked contrast compared to today, but cloudier skies for parts of northern England, especially the northwest, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, along with that keen breeze. It's going to be milder actually in the north, but a bit colder further south, with temperatures closer to average here. But again, with light winds, plenty of sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. And that's the way things continue for the rest of the week, actually. The southern half of the UK will see sunny spells by day, but increasingly fog forming overnight, and that fog will be dense at times, perhaps continuing through the day on Friday and Saturday in places. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, breezier and milder.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Morning everyone, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, and Anaya Folarin Iman on your telly and on your radio as well. So we're here all the way through until midday, and we've got loads of top topics for you to get stuck into today.
Yes, make sure you get in touch with your views as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Send them in. We're going to be getting through all of that throughout the show, but first, here's the latest news.
Good morning, it's 1 minute past 11. I'm Rosie Wright in the GB newsroom. Let's get you up to date. The Met Police say they're in contact with the Cabinet Office over claims a drinks party was held at Downing Street during the first lockdown. In an email that's been released by ITV, the Prime Minister's private secretary, Martin Reynolds, invited over 100 staff to bring your own booze for an outdoor evening gathering. Number 10 said it wouldn't be commenting on the allegations during the current inquiry into lockdown parties. Conservative MP Michael Fabricant told GB News that Boris Johnson intended the event to be a reward for staff.
And what was he trying to do? Saying, look, guys, you've all worked together in a very difficult situation, in a situation where you could have all caught COVID together, as he did. at number 10 Downing Street and almost lost his life. It's a lovely sunny day, let's have a break. Now, it may have broken the rules, it may not, we'll find out. But you know what? The motives were the right motives, and it was a controlled environment with no outsiders coming in.
Government ministers are putting pressure on scientists to allow the UK to follow in the footsteps of the US and cut the COVID isolation period from 7 days to 5. It comes after the UK Health Security Agency admitted it had initially misunderstood when the isolation period begins in America. Well, in both countries, it starts at the onset of symptoms or the day of a positive test, whichever is sooner. Talking of testing, asymptomatic people who test positive for COVID-19 on a lateral flow test in England no longer need to get a follow-up PCR from today. They will still be required, of course, to self-isolate immediately. The aim is to free up testing capacity for those with symptoms. Northern Ireland's health minister has revealed he's received death threats over his handling of the COVID pandemic. Robin Swan says he's been forced to fortify his home during 2 stressful years in the role. The Ulster Unionist minister also says threats and abuse should not be acceptable in any society.
Well, look, we've had to increase the level of security at home as well. So the biggest challenge, I think, is having to explain that to our 2 children, you know, why that alarm's in the house, why you have to put the bar across that door now, or why those alarms are on certain windows as well. And it shouldn't be, because I'm health minister, you know, it's a challenge that we've had to reflect as a family, you know, at what point, you know, explaining that additional level of security actually is needed because of the job that I do.
Tennis's governing body say the controversy over Novak Djokovic's Australian visa application has been damaging on all fronts. In a statement, the ATP says it welcomes the court's decision to quash his visa cancellation, but urged players to get vaccinated and to comply with global travel regulations. Djokovic is now training ahead of the Australian Open. Chris Bowers is the author of Novak Djokovic and the Rise of Serbia. He told GB News recent events will have affected the tennis star.
He will feel, hang on a second, I'm exercising a right which I ought to be able to exercise. I fully respect people who wish to take the vaccine. Just don't make it compulsory for me to earn my living to have to put this vaccine in my arm. And therefore, for him to end up, especially as he travelled to Australia following the advice he'd been given, I think would have hurt him.
Russia has insisted it has no intention of invading Ukraine, despite amassing 100,000 troops at the border. Russian and US officials have been holding talks in Geneva to try to de-escalate tensions, but there's been no sign of progress. Security expert Will Geddes told GB News there's concern on both sides.
100,000 is, I think, more of a demonstration of resilience and being robust, because there's this huge concern about NATO imposing into Ukraine the capabilities to potentially launch missiles into Russia, and equally, NATO's worried about Russia getting into Ukraine.
Doctors in the US have transplanted a pig heart into a human patient for the first time. The experimental surgery took 7 hours to complete in the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore. Medical experts say, though, it saved 57-year-old David Bennett's life. Well, the surgeons report that he's doing well 3 days after the procedure. It is estimated over 100,000 Americans are currently waiting for an organ transplant. Now, a set of 12 stamps is going to be launched later this month to celebrate the Rolling Stones as the band marks its 60th anniversary. The stamps are going to feature images from some of their most famous performances over the years, including their 1969 London Hyde Park show, held just 2 days after the death of founding member Brian Jones. Well, the Rolling Stones worked closely with Royal Mail to develop the set. They are only the 4th music group to feature in a dedicated set of stamps. You are up to date. This is GB News. There'll be more news as it happens. Now let's return to the point.
Morning all, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys and Inaya Falarin Imran, on your TV and on your radio. And we've got absolutely loads coming your way in this hour. That first hour was jam-packed, and so is this one. Here's what's coming up.
Indeed. Top story of the day. Around 100 Downing Street employees were invited to an illegal garden party during lockdown. Our GB News editors Mark White and Darren McCaffrey bring us more just in a moment.
Yes, absolutely. We did a poll on that. 57.4% of you apparently thought Boris should go over it, but the vast majority of people in my inbox right now couldn't care less about the parties. But anyway, moving on. The winners of Best Actress and Best Actor awards for drama series at the Golden Globes were both born male. So is it time? Is it time to scrap the gender binary for these awards? What do we all think?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but anyway. Dry January, veganuary, other New Year's resolutions. Oh, as we approach the halfway point of the month, are you hitting a wall? We talked to a motivation expert who may be able to give us a much-needed push through January.
Yes, I'm going to be announcing something live on air as well, ladies and gentlemen. A personal matter. A personal matter, and so you're going to want to stay tuned. For that, I certainly will be needing that.
Is that worrying?
No. It's well, I don't know, it might be. Let's find out. Anyway, we have all that coming up and much, much more across the programme. And, of course, you can get in touch as well, as loads of you have. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Hey, look, we're about to talk about this Downing Street party. I know a lot of you think, oh, gosh, I wish you'd always just stop. But you know what? Loads of you getting in touch about it. Do you care? Do you not care? Should Boris stay? Should Boris go?
The biggest story of the day, around 100 Downing Street employees received an invite to a socially distanced garden party on the 20th of May 2020, 2 months into the first and harshest national COVID lockdown.
Well, in a leaked email released by ITV News, the employees were asked by Boris Johnson's principal private secretary to bring their own booze and make the most of the lovely weather. This is in the number 10 garden. Now, at the time, apparently only 2 people were allowed to socialise outside under the national restrictions, but it is understood that around 40 staff met for drinks and food from 6 p.m. that evening, including the Prime Minister and his wife, Carrie, apparently.
I mean, do people normally take their wives and bring their own booze to a work meeting? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know, I suppose. It depends who's running the country, doesn't it?
Well, the PM has so far refused to answer whether he attended the party. Police are investigating the incident.
Yeah, well, Mark White is our Home and Security editor, and he's here to tell us a little bit about where the police are up to with this and how far everything could go. Mark joins us now, indeed. There we go. So, Mark, what's the ongoing situation at the moment, then, please?
Well, Scotland Yard has confirmed that it is in contact with the Cabinet Office about what they acknowledge are widespread reports about this Downing Street party that took place in May of 2020. Now, that doesn't mean that they have launched a formal investigation or that they will indeed do that at the end of the day. You remember, of course, the allegations that emerged just before Christmas about Downing Street parties that took place in December of 2020. Well, after some thought on that particular matter, Scotland Yard decided that it was not in the best interests of the force in terms of the resources available to them to start retrospective investigations into that particular issue. Now, that was widely criticised at the time. Indeed, Liberal Democrat peer made a formal complaint to the Independent Office of Police Complaints about the issue and the fact that the Metropolitan Police should have investigated those allegations of parties back in December of 2020. Well, the IOPC sent that back to the Metropolitan Police, believing that was a matter for them and it wasn't appropriate for the IOPC to investigate. So there is no doubt that the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Cressida Dick, will be under some pressure to act with regard to the ongoing investigation. But I think if there is a formal investigation, it is unlikely that that would take place until Sue Gray, who is the civil servant who has been tasked by the Prime Minister to investigate those parties in December of 2020 and now will take on board the allegations surrounding the latest parties that took place earlier in May of 2020. It's unlikely that any police investigation would take place until after Sue Gray has formally completed her assessment and report on what happened, and we think there's at least another couple of weeks to go, and that was before, of course, this latest party has been added to the list. So I don't know if that's going to knock it on any further. But as I say, no guarantee of a formal police investigation. If there was, though, it could result in significant problems for certainly the civil servant, Martin Reynolds, the principal private secretary for the Prime Minister, who sent out this invitation to more than 100 people, and potentially the Prime Minister himself, with these reports that he and his wife Carrie were at that event, not being confirmed by Downing Street, but neither, and this is significant, I think, neither has it been denied.
Well, thank you very much for bringing us this update, Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. We're now going to speak to Paul Hawkins, our national reporter, who is live in front of Downing Street right now. Good morning, Paul. What do we know and what this could mean? What could this mean for the Prime Minister?
Under real pressure now with the revelations, the allegations about this party taking place at Downing Street on May the 20th. Before the Christmas break, he was under a lot of pressure from Conservative MPs, really unhappy with not just the fact that these crises keep happening to the government. We're looking at the Owen Paterson scandal, but also Barnard Castle and then these Christmas parties, but it's the way that he's handled them. And the Prime Minister over the Christmas break would be hoping that that gap with the Parliament going into recess, etc., that would give him a bit of breathing space and that they could reset the agenda and talk more about Omicron in the new year. But this leak again has added further fuel to the fire, put the parties back on the front pages again, and given the Prime Minister a real headache. And it's difficult for him now because, of course, this party especially, there are allegations that he was at the party himself, so he can't hold the line really that he didn't know about the parties, which is what he told Parliament on December the 8th. So that's going to be difficult for him, and it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of this investigation by Sue Gray says.
Yeah, indeed. It's a real mixed bag, this one, Paul, to be honest with you. We did a poll on it earlier. 57% of people were saying that they thought Boris Johnson should resign over this. So that's the poll result. And then I've got the inbox in front of me here, and the vast majority of people are saying they just don't really seem to care. Do you get the impression this is a bit of a Westminster bubble story, or do you think this has got massive, massive cut-through?
Does have cut through more so than the flat story, and I say that because the evidence, when you look at the polling, I know you've done your own personal poll today, but when you look at the polling across the country, it does show that Labour do have a significant lead, right? It's just a suggestion of public opinion, but then you look at the North Shropshire by-election, that is a proper Conservative seat that had swung hugely away from the Conservative Party towards the Liberal Democrats, and a number of reasons were given by voters for the disillusionment with the Conservative Party. One of those, fundamentally, was trust in Boris Johnson and the way he has handled these party allegations, also the Owen Paterson scandal. So the integrity of the Prime Minister very much being questioned at the moment. That's Labour's attack this morning as well. They've been their line of attack has been the one rule for them, one rule for us. But this morning they've really gone personal on the Prime Minister's integrity, and it does appear to be cutting through. So yeah, definitely hitting home with some voters. I know the GBNews inbox saying that that this is a Westminster bubble story, but certainly in the wider country it does seem to be cutting through, and the Prime Minister will be under pressure.
Yeah, no, I think you make a really strong point there, Paul, when you mention the Shropshire by-election, which was a Conservative-held seat. So I think that's really strong evidence that it is undoubtedly cutting through to the wider general public. And actually, even though we've had some mixed views in the inbox, that the poll there is actually saying the majority of people are thinking the Prime Minister should resign over this. I mean, what's the kind of mood music in your sense from Conservative backbenchers? Obviously, the Prime Minister also had the 100+ rebellion, and there's been some, concerns definitely amongst Red Wall newly elected MPs about the polls. I mean, have you got any sense of what the mood music is like in the Tory backbenches?
We've had Michael Fabricant earlier on GB News defending the government, saying that on May the 20th, the party was justified in the garden of number 10. A lot of the workers in there, they work closely together. This was held outdoors. And so he's come out defending the government, but so far there hasn't been much criticism of the government from the backbenchers. But we know that before Christmas they were publicly and privately very angry with the way the Prime Minister has handled both Partygate, as it's been known, and also the Owen Paterson scandal. So the mood seemed to be that they were willing to give him one last chance. Whether they're going to continue with that remains to be seen. Their patience certainly wearing thin, and it should make for a pretty interesting Prime Minister's question time tomorrow.
Indeed. Well, we look forward to that, and we will, of course, be bringing all of our audience all the updates throughout the show and so on. Our national reporter, Paul Hawkins. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Good stuff. Well, look, hey, keep those views coming in. GB Views at gbnews.uk. But after the break, we've got loads for you. Both the winner of the Best Actress and Best Actor award for a drama series at the Golden Globes were born men. Who'd have thought it, hey? That's on today's controversy. We're going to ask a female rights campaigner whether or not this is fair. We've got loads more as well. Fingers crossed as well. A bit of a head-to-head. Should MPs get a pay rise? That's all to come after that. Bye-bye.
Hello again. A bright day with some sunshine across northern parts of the country. Cloudier skies in the south, grey and drizzly for southern parts of England and South Wales. Because of this weather front clearing, it's a weak feature, but it is bringing a lot of low, misty cloud. Once it clears, sunshine is to the north of it, and high pressure builds in for the rest of the week across southern parts of the country. But a keen breeze will be felt across northern Scotland, along with a few showers for the north and northwest. Meanwhile, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, much of North Wales seeing long spells of sunshine. But further south again, that's where we've got the extensive low cloud, some drizzle, perhaps even some moderate bursts of rain for East Anglia and the southeast. 11 or 12 in the south, much colder further north, although feeling more pleasant, I suspect, with those sunny skies. Now, we're going to keep the keen breeze across Scotland overnight, as well as Northern Ireland. That will push in some extra cloud. Northern England seeing that cloud as well, but the cloud in the south clears, and as that clears and winds drop out, well, we'll see an extensive frost and temperatures as low as -4, -5 Celsius in sheltered spots. Also, some fog patches, mainly around river valleys, sheltered rural parts, and they'll fairly quickly lift, I think, during the morning. Then plenty of sunshine for the southern half of the UK, a marked contrast compared to today. But cloudier skies for parts of northern England, especially the northwest, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, along with that keen breeze. It's going to be milder actually in the north, but a bit colder further south, with temperatures closer to average here. But again, with light winds, plenty of sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. And that's the way things continue for the rest of the week, actually. The southern half of the UK will see sunny spells by day, but increasingly fog forming overnight, and that fog will be dense at times, perhaps continuing through the day on Friday and Saturday in places. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, breezier and milder.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News home and security editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
It's 11:22. This is To The Point with Patrick, Christys, Ananaya, Flaren, Emma and myself on GB News. We're live on your TV and your radio this morning.
We are indeed. Now, the Golden Globes Awards were once considered to be one of the highlights of the acting calendar, where screen stars would see their achievements richly awarded on stage. But of course, this year, not everybody felt like celebrating. So for the first time in the history of the award ceremony, a transgender woman, so biological male, has won the Best Actress category.
MJ Rodriguez starred in the LGBT+ TV show Pose, which I have watched a few episodes. It's quite a good show. And had previously been nominated in the same category of Best Actress for the Emmy Awards. So in her victory, a broader win for the LGBT acceptance movement, or have the female actresses been snubbed? Joining us now is Kelly J. Keane, founder of Standing for Women and a feminist campaigner.
She is. She's turned the lights off. Oh, well, that doesn't matter so much. We'll just have a chat about it. You're a woman. What do you think?
I think it is really a hard one. I think, you know, one of the frustrating things about the kind of the transgender kind of ideology that has kind of exploded is that, you know, transgender people have been living in our society, you know, since time immemorial. They're a tiny minority of people that, you know, have an unfortunate incongruence between their sense of self and their body. And the desire for transgender people that I've come across was to live a kind of just integrate within society. And what you have now is a kind of replacing of gender identity with biological sex. So I think that, to me, the much more inclusive way is to create a trans category. Just as in sports, you know, let's have a trans category because we know that males have an advantage over women. I mean, look at the highest, the strongest male in the weightlifting contest versus the strongest female is incredibly, there's a significant difference. The idea that we're having a debate whether that males have an advantage over females in sports is really just for the birds, quite frankly. Yeah. And similar for prisons, I think that there should be, I have no problem actually with trans females in some instances on a case-by-case basis being in female prisons, but that should be a specific, there should also be a trans wing. Yeah, no, exactly. So to me, you know, why is there not just a trans category instead of actually subverting the women's one?
There you go. Well, look, we're going to return to that later when our guest does indeed appear. But now, we all know that asking for a pay rise tends to be a bit awkward. Depends who you are, though, doesn't it? But this applies to no group more so than MPs. So in the midst of yet another lockdown party scandal, Boris Johnson has announced that plans to raise ministers' wages by 2.6% in April are set to go forward as normal. So this would leave, obviously, MPs with a total pay packet of 82 grand a year. Well, well above the median wage for British workers. But do they really deserve it? And that's what we want to do today. So we decided, didn't we? Let's head-to-head it.
Yes.
Right? Let's find people who've got two different views and make them have it out hammer and tongs. So for this, we're asking whether or not MPs should be given a pay rise. On one side, we've got the one and only of this parish as well, Darren Grimes. There we go, political commentator and soon-to-be presenter on GB News, and Gawain Towler, a political consultant to the Reform party. Both of you know the drill, hopefully anyway. You get 60 seconds each, right? And then we'll just have it out in a wider debate. Darren, I'll start with you. Should MPs get a pay rise?
Absolutely not, right? Let's sort of paint an economic picture. I heard audible gasps from members of my family as they opened their energy estimates recently, and they're absolutely not alone in that, right? I dare say come April this year, with energy bills set to double, there'll be a collective gasp across the nation, right? Letting out more hot air than Boris Johnson over these number 10 parties and all of this net zero nonsense. I think we hear this line repeatedly, right? That it starts to look like one rule for them and quite another for the struggling masses at the bottom. They say we're all in it together, but evidently not if this is to go ahead at the same time as rocketing bills and a national insurance tax hike. I mean, Patrick, I am no clairvoyant, right? I'm not Mystic Meg, but I reckon I can safely predict with more accuracy than a sage COVID model that this will go down like a bag of sick with voters that are experiencing
all right, that's your 60 seconds. That's your 60 seconds. There you go. Just about got it all in. We'll go back to it, Darren. Don't worry. Gawain, over to you now. Gawain Towler, political consultant to the Reform Party. 60 seconds starts now. Should they get pay rise?
All right. That's all very well, and politically, it's an absolute nightmare. However, it's worth noting that the salaries for MPs have dropped year on year compared to the average since they were first brought in 1910. In 1910, the average salary of an MP salary was 400 quid a year. The average salary was 70. That was 5 times the average salary. Now it's about 3 times. The problem is it's hardly performance related. If you want politicians to be good and effective, then you have to pay them properly. And I'm sorry to say, whilst we like to damn them, we like to...
All right, that is it. Thank you. Great. Time is up. Time is up. Okay, quick fire questions and quick fire answers. Darren, thank you for your contribution. I mean, some of the counter arguments that Gwen put forward, I mean, we've had this Owen Paterson scandal, we have all of these different scandals, and some people argue that's because MPs aren't really paid enough. And as we know, as CEOs and in other big industries, to get the best people, you've got to actually pay them well, or they'll be snapped up by other industries. And therefore, the same should be the case to getting the best MPs. What do you say to that?
Well, and I say to that, what on earth are people smoking, right? If I was to go up to my local high street right now and do a quick poll and ask people surrounded by shuttered shops and high streets experiencing significant economic disparities compared to London and the southeast, for example, I reckon they'd ask me if I'd lost me marbles, frankly, if I was asking them the question of, should MPs receive more dosh than the 80 grand we so generously give them through taxpayer contributions right now? I'd be laughed off the high street, and I think rightly so, because ultimately, right, as it works in the private sector, I think Gawain's right, MPs should be linked to the performance that they put in, and frankly, right now, I'm not sure they are putting in a good performance.
Strong point. And Gawain, I mean, if you ask any person that's working, should I get a pay rise? Every single person is going to say yes, and actually MPs are in the unique position to be able to actually give themselves a pay rise, and that's not really fair for the public.
That's not true. That's not true.
No, if you ask anyone, if you ask anyone, they'll say they have a pay rise.
They get an average pay rise that is averaged across the public sector. Now, there's a question: should it be averaged across the public sector? However, to say that they give themselves a pay rise is no longer true. That's been taken out of their hands.
Well, at the end of the day, the public, if you ask them, for example, they've stopped some of the higher threshold of the pay rise that some NHS staff were asking for. Many people have been working very hard during the pandemic, delivery drivers, Uber drivers, and they can't, unilaterally get a pay rise. So I think actually it's a bit unfair at this time of the pandemic, don't you think?
Would you say that the whole public sector should not have a pay rise?
I would definitely say that people that have been at the front line of the pandemic right now should get a pay rise. But many people have actually been, sitting at home, working from home, and it's actually been quite a relatively calmer time for them than it has for other people.
Saving money, some people.
Yeah. So pay should be related to presenteeism. And the problem is, if you do want politicians, you want people to put themselves forward to get all the slings and arrows and get all the rubbish that's chucked at them, you've got to commensurately pay them. If you want to go back to some 19th century system where only the personally wealthy can stand for Parliament, so be it. But I don't think that's democratic. And I don't think that would be good for the country.
You look at the deputy leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner. You know, she worked in the care sector. Actually, the MP salary that she's getting is 3, 4, perhaps even 5 times the amount that she would have had before she was working as an MP. So actually, for the majority of MPs, that is way above what they would have ordinarily been earning.
In some cases, yes. But again, who do we want? Do we want people who can command decent salaries because they are capable, because they are competent? Do we want to do that? I think it's important to note, as I say, that the average salary of an MP compared to the average national salary has been dropping ever since it started over 100 years ago. Now, I would say the quality of MP has dropped to the similar level.
Well, that's
if we want better people, then maybe we don't stop paying them like monkeys.
All right, go ahead. That's it. We're going to throw over now. Darren gets the final word in. Surely, Darren, you know, people going in to be an MP, they should just do it for the love of it, shouldn't they? There's no financial incentive there.
Do you get paid,
yeah,
Patrick?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with my friends at the Taxpayers Alliance, actually, right, that MPs ought to be paid in line with the country's economic performance. And right now, we are not performing very well. We are actually putting a millstone around the next generation's neck, right? We keep being told on financial matters that those with the broadest shoulders should carry the burden. Well, I'm sorry, but 80 grand is a pretty canny salary to most of us up here and in other areas like it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we'll sort of... Look, guys, I could talk to you about this all day, and indeed I would love to. But obviously, Gawain, thank you very, very much. Gawain Towler there is also, of course, political consultant to the Reform Party. And Darren Grimes, you'll know exactly who that chap is. And make sure you watch this space, because Darren Grimes is coming to this parish very, very soon, and we're lucky to have him. So anyway, what's coming up?
Yes, after the break, we'll be taking a look at the worrying spike in recorded cases of male sexual abuse. Before that, a look at the morning's news.
Good morning, it's 11:33. I'm Rosie Wright in the GB newsroom. Let's get you up to date. Now, the deputy leader of the Labour Party has been granted an urgent question in the House of Commons following claims that a drinks party was held at Downing Street Garden during the first lockdown. That happens in about an hour's time. The Met Police is also in contact with the Cabinet Office. Yesterday, ITV released an email written by the Prime Minister's private secretary where he invited 100 staff to bring your own booze for an outdoor gathering. Number 10 said it wouldn't be commenting on the allegations during the current inquiry into lockdown parties. Well, we'll bring you live coverage of the comments here on GB News. Now, government ministers are putting pressure on scientists to allow the UK to follow in the footsteps of the US and cut the COVID isolation period from 7 days to 5. Well, it comes after the UK Health Security Agency admitted it had initially misunderstood when the isolation period begins in America. In both countries, it starts at the onset of symptoms or the day of a positive test, whichever is sooner. Talking of testing, asymptomatic people who test positive for COVID-19 in England on a lateral flow test no longer need to take a follow-up PCR test from today. They will, of course, still be required to self-isolate immediately. The aim is to free up testing capacity for those with symptoms. Doctors in the US have transplanted a pig heart into a human patient for the first time. The experimental surgery took 7 hours to complete in University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore, with medical experts saying it saved 57-year-old David Bennett's life. Surgeons say he's doing well 3 days after the procedure. It is estimated that over 100,000 Americans are currently waiting for an organ transplant. Tennis's governing body, the ATP, say the controversy over Novak Djokovic's Australian visa application has been damaging on all fronts. In a statement, it welcomed the court's decision to quash his visa cancellation, but urged players to get vaccinated to comply with global travel regulations. Djokovic is now training ahead of the Australian Open. Well, this is GB News and you're up to date. I'll bring you more news as it happens. Now back to the point.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're Channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Well, morning everybody, it's 11:37. Now, this is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, and Anaya Falarin Iman. We're on GB News, of course we are. We're live on your TV and your radio this morning.
Yes, well, the start of a new year can mean many things, restricting alcohol consumption, smoking, or even attempting a new diet. But how long can we stick to these promises?
Indeed. Well, it's not just about taking away. You can add something to your life as well that could make you feel so much better. Start yoga or something, I don't know. New year, new me. It's a statement, isn't it? Mentioned by a lot of people, but will it ever really change? Well, someone who may be able to help is joining us now. It's Janie Holiday, who's a mindset coach. And welcome to the show. Thank you very, very much. Now I'm actually going to announce something live on air now. I am a fatty bum. I've been eating like a pregnant horse for the last several months now. Probably enjoying the bottles of red a bit too much as well. And indeed, I quite like the odd cheeky dart. And so I need to stop these things now. So I've decided I'm supposed to be going on holiday in 20 days, right? Ooh. I think I can lose half a stone in 20 days. Janie, set my mindset for me, please.
Good morning. Well, yes, you're right. Many people make New Year's resolutions, don't they? And some of them are short-lived. You are just describing here that you have got a clear goal with a clear time frame, and that's great. So the tips that I would share for you with your specific example, and this really is transferable to any goal that anybody sets in any area of their lives, is about making sure it's a goal that you really, really want, and then connecting with your magic whys. So a lot of people kind of know the reasons that they want to do something, but what a really great tip is to get a bit more connected to the emotional side, the magical side, what you gain, what are the benefits, how it will make you feel, and go into that with a little bit more detail. Motivation is an inside job. No one else can motivate you. That's a really important point. You can be inspired by others. The definition of inspire is to breathe life into. But basically, you need to work out the ways that will make you do, and that is different for everybody.
Does shaming come on the thing of personal shaming? Because what really tipped it over the edge for me today, right, was I was on the train on the way in, and I looked left, and I caught a glance of someone's reflection in the train window. And I realised that was me, and I looked like a whale. And then I got into work, and I tried to put my tie on, right? And my top button couldn't do it, and it was an absolute nightmare. And I ended up throwing it over there. But do you think maybe, kind of personal shame really can be a good motivator?
Well, again, what you're describing here is a unique method that can be different for everybody. So here, the example is what I call negative motivation. So some people are more motivated when they are shocked or shamed, as you said. They see something that they don't want. They focus on what they don't have. So that's negative motivation. Other people are far more likely to be inspired to act and change and do by the positives of them. So everybody is really, really different. And actually, you can combine the two as well. It's always about knowing what works for you, trying everything out, different things, just work in progress mindset is what I call it. And also just getting really clear, like you're having a bit of a sense of humor here and a laugh, and that's fine. But if you really want something, sometimes you need to roll your sleeves up, get really focused on the task in hand. You can have fun while you're doing it, of course, but if it's something that you really want, sometimes you need to actually make it a priority and make it something that you really are going to make happen because it's something that you authentically want for yourself.
A final question, Jane. I don't know if you saw some of the controversy, but Molly May, the former Love Island star, she was criticised for saying, we only have 24 hours in a day. It's all about your mindset and working hard and all this type of stuff. And people were saying, actually, there's a lot of structural reasons within society why people aren't able to do things, whether that's, no access to different healthy eating places or poverty or stress and stuff like that. I mean, where do you stand on that? How do you put more weight in terms of people's mindset and mentality, or do you also think about maybe the context can often make it harder for people to actually take control of their life?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's absolutely about creating the right time. Have we got the time to do what we want? I'm a busy single mum of 3. I work full time. My time is highly compromised, but it goes back to what I was saying. If you really, really want something, you will make it happen. You will create space for it. When you say yes to something, you indirectly say no to something else. And we are a very busy generation. Often people come to me, I can't find the time to do X, Y, Z, but actually they're spending 4 to 5 hours on social media. And I think it depends on what your goal is. There are definitely roadblocks that we have in our lives that stop us from going and getting what we want, but we need to push back on ourselves and find solutions. That's one of the ways I really help people is, getting through those roadblocks so that they can create what they want. I'd like to think that everybody can change the end of their story, and sometimes you'll go down one path and then you need to go down another, but keep connecting to what you want. Don't focus on anybody else and just knuckle down and make it happen.
Well, there you go. I mean, I must say, you've got me motivated now to lose the weight.
Yes, good. It's all about mentality.
Yes, it is.
We like it. Well, Janie Holiday, mindset coach, thank you for joining us and giving us some tips on new year, new me, and Patrick Christys' potential weight loss.
You think I'll do it? Half a stone, 20 days, do you reckon?
Maybe. I mean, you're probably going to have to do about 500 calorie a day diet to do that kind of stuff. Are you that disciplined to do that?
I don't know, but I did start my day with a salad. So I started with some rabbit food. Although what I also did was, in the last advert break, go to the office fridge and steal someone's cheese.
Ooh.
So, so there we go.
Well,
I had to come clean, all right? I had to come clean.
Yes.
Whoever's cheese it is, I'm very, very sorry, but it's gone now.
Well, moving on, in the controversy today, the Golden Globes Awards were once considered to be one of the highlights of the acting calendar, where screen stars would see their achievements richly awarded on stage. But this year, not everyone felt like celebrating. For the first time in the history of the award ceremony, a transgender woman, i.e. a biological male, has won the Best Actress category. MJ Rodriguez starred in the LGBT+ TV show Pose and had previously been nominated in the same category of Best Actress for the Emmy Awards. So, is her victory a broader win for the LGBT community and acceptance, or have female actresses been snubbed?
Oh, well, joining us now, hopefully, is Kelly J. Keane, founder of... there we go. Founder of Standing for Women and a women's rights activist. Right, well, we're witnessing the erasure of womanhood here, surely, aren't we?
It's bonkers, isn't it? The best actress in the world, according to the Golden Globes, is a man. It's just the same as Caitlyn Jenner winning Woman of the Year award, many sportsmen taking a variety of championships awards for women. It's all over the shop, isn't it? I mean, is there any space that women can have all of our own? It seems these days the answer to that is absolutely no.
Kelly, I mean, some people would say, Kelly Jane, that actually, you know, transgender people, they have actually fought through barriers, they have smashed a lot of glass ceilings, and there isn't a category for them that necessarily is aligned to their gender identity. And they have been living as a woman, they are seen and perceived as a woman within society and are playing a woman in some instances. And so why shouldn't they be allowed to have the female award?
Yeah, and I guess to those people, I would say, what about women? I think when we look at the history of these awards and all of the Hollywood shows, and quite frankly, I think Ricky Gervais hopefully has finished off many of them, and the pomposity and the fact that we should all kneel at the altar of Hollywood. I really hope that is something that is beginning to diminish. However, when it comes to women's awards, I mean, there have been years when no woman director has been nominated. It's not like women, aside from in the female-only categories, are actually winning many of these awards. So they were entirely necessary. I mean, if people are so inclined that they think there should be a special category for, one could argue, people who act nearly every day of their lives playing a role, then if we think that people who call themselves transgender deserve awards, then either their sex category, or let's create a special award, an LGBTQ plus award.
Well, I think that perhaps potentially is the next step, because it does seem to be a deadlock that we're in, and this debate has been raging for several years, and it doesn't seem to have moved forward. And maybe that is the kind of compromise within a mature and compassionate society, that we have a LGBT plus category for these award ceremonies. Potentially in sports, we have a trans category for sport, and potentially, as we've been having discussions about keeping prisons single sex, potentially there is a trans wing for prisons as well. Do you think that is a compromise that you would accept as a kind of radical feminist rights activist?
Well, I'm not a radical feminist, but I honestly think if you suggest that to these people, that you will find that for many men who call themselves trans, the opportunity to be recognised in a category alongside women, whether that is a rapist in a women's prison, or whether that is someone winning an award or using a woman's space, it is mostly about validation. And so it's not validating if we suggest a third space. It's not validating if we suggest a third category. This really is about people...
But Kelly Jane, we do know that, for example, gender dysphoria is a recognised condition, and for a minority of people, maybe not the numbers that we're seeing now, but for a minority of people, it is recognised as the appropriate treatment to transition medically, and for them to feel a sense of comfort in who they are and how they feel about themselves. And therefore, do you not think that we can accommodate a very tiny minority of people that have that within society?
I think, of course, we could accommodate people with all sorts of conditions in society, but not women accommodating men in women's spaces under any circumstances. I think once we start saying, oh, you're a good one, you can come in, you're a bad one, you can't come in, for a start, I don't know how we'd police that. And secondly, women don't want that. I'm not particularly interested in what your motivation as a man to come into women's space. You're not coming in. Women are far too important to give up these spaces and these rights to any man.
I think what's going to be fascinating, right, has been the reaction to J.K. Rowling, right, and her views on this. And then all of a sudden, if men start winning female awards, how quickly Hollywood will change, and whether or not they can, because so many of them will have spoken out against J.K. Rowling, right? And then all of a sudden it gets to the Golden Globes and they're like, I think I might have won that award if Gary hadn't turned up. And I wonder whether or not we're going to see a bit of a change. What do you reckon?
I hope the person is called Gary. That would be just such a delight. I think it will. I think eventually this impacts every woman, no matter where you are on the sort of the societal strata. I think eventually it will come knocking upon your door to speak out or forever hold your peace. And for some people, I have no idea. I mean, what has got to happen before some of these women speak up? How many more things have to happen that go completely against women and women's rights and spaces and safety? honesty is it going to take before some women actually grab their courage by the hand and bring it forward? It's just so bizarre.
But Kelly Jo, I mean, hasn't this been one of the problems with feminism in general for a long time? I'm not saying that you are a radical feminist, but a lot of women, if you actually look at the statistics, actually only a minority of women identify as a feminist. They don't necessarily see themselves as primarily acting within a kind of political sphere as a woman, and maybe just don't see this issue as something really, really important to them. And they kind of think, oh, this just seems a bit, divisive and toxic. I'm going to ignore this. I mean, so perhaps it may not be the case that women increasingly are going to stand up against this, and it may just go to its logical conclusion when many of these awards and groups will be dominated by people that are trans-identified.
I mean, personally, I've never thought feminism is the solution to this particular argument. The women that I know that speak out mostly, that have the most to risk in their lives, they don't call themselves feminists. They haven't got time to read some academic, theoretical idea about why women should have our own spaces. These are women that actually live their lives really on the front line of what it means to be losing their rights. Now, that might be somebody who works in a large warehouse who has to share the toilets with a man, or it might be somebody right at the bottom of the pile who is likely to be searched by a police officer who calls himself a woman, or even end up in prison. For those women, feminism is not going to come along and save them. I've always thought actually that so many feminists nowadays think men can be women, that what's the whole point of feminism in 2022 anyway? But no, it's real, it's actual women. These are women's rights. We need to get back to what it means to be a woman and women's rights, and why women in the past that may or may not have called themselves feminists actually fought for the rights in the first place, and who the hell are any of us to give them up?
Kelly, I think it's a really interesting point. Of course, it's not a debate that's going to go away anytime soon, but Kelly J. Keane, thank you very much, founder of Standing for Women. Now, just on an email there, you may have heard a little exclamation, apologies, because I realised I fundamentally have let the viewers down.
Oh.
Not for the first time.
That new.
So you announced that you were going to have Gordon Brown's view on Scottish independence. We've only got a few minutes left to
that's
the
a
top.
good point.
I just wanted to just very, very quickly just say what it was, because Gillian's waited all morning, apparently. Well, basically what the Gordon Brown is thinking of doing is a big plan for Scottish Labour to actually, frankly, win a few seats north of the border, is to stand pro-independence candidates, right? So pro-Scottish independence candidates. So Labour, potentially, north of the border, could be pro-Scottish independence and therefore the destruction of the union, which is something that you alluded to yesterday, wasn't it?
I mean, I think that would just be an utter disaster. And I think, the Labour Party are probably now thinking of ways in which they could get a majority, and it's almost impossible at the moment when they have lost Scotland almost entirely, and they're thinking this is a way to challenge the SNP. You do not challenge the SNP by becoming the Scottish National Party. You challenge the SNP by articulating a unifying and coherent vision of what it means to be British and make that compelling and what Scottish people want to buy into.
OK, all right. Now, we'll be doing more on that tomorrow, Gillian, so make sure you stay tuned.
Yes.
Now, we are just going to finish with something really serious, actually. More than 7,000 calls, texts and emails were received by SafeLine's male sex abuse hotline in 2021, more than double those received in 2020. And experts have estimated that around 1 in 6 men have fallen victim to sexual abuse in their lifetimes. Joining us now is Neil Henderson, CEO of the charity SafeLine, who's joining us down the line, actually. He's joining us on the phone. Look, thank you. I mean, this is absolutely incredible stats. Is this a result of more sexual abuse or a result of more people coming forward, feeling comfortable enough to talk about it?
It's the latter. It's more people coming forward. People often think that sexual abuse is primarily a female issue, but and the increase in calls that we got to the helpline during the pandemic in particular was a result of more males feeling more comfortable to come forward, disclose abuse and seek support.
OK.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that as a society, Neil, that we don't take male sexual abuse seriously enough? There's a lot of stigma, it seems to be, about allowing men to come forward. It's often something that we talk about in the context of females and women. Do you think this is something that we need to be raising much more awareness of in society?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't until 2014 that the government actually funded male support services. Up until then, they'd only funded female services. So it really is a huge issue. I mean, we did some research about 16 months ago. We interviewed about 1,000 men. None of them we knew had been affected by sexual violence. But the research showed that 50% of those men had experienced some form of sexual harassment or sexual abuse. I mean, so we talk about 1 in 6 men. We think it could be even more than that.
Yeah.
So it's something we really need to focus on, you know, because, as I say, the focus tends to be on females quite, you know, which is hugely important.
It does, Neil. And I'm very sorry to interrupt. I know we got a bit squeezed here, Neil, so please do come on again very, very soon. In fact, we could speak to you more about it tomorrow, actually, if you're around, Neil, to be fair. We're very sorry because we've got to wrap the show. Neil Henderson, CEO of SafeLine. Look, that's it from all of us here. Do come back, Neil. That's it from all of us here at To The Point, but don't go away, because up next is the briefing with the wonderful Gloria De Piero, sat just opposite me right now. We'll see you tomorrow, won't we?
Hello again. A bright day with some sunshine across northern parts of the country. Cloudier skies in the south, grey and drizzly for southern parts of England and South Wales. Because of this weather front clearing, it's a weak feature, but it is bringing a lot of low, misty cloud. Once it clears, sunshine is to the north of it, and high pressure builds in for the rest of the week across southern parts of the country. But a keen breeze will be felt across northern Scotland, along with a few showers for the north and northwest. Meanwhile, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, much of North Wales seeing long spells of sunshine. But further south again, that's where we've got the extensive low cloud, some drizzle, perhaps even some moderate bursts of rain for East Anglia and the southeast. 11 or 12 in the south, much colder further north, although feeling more pleasant, I suspect, with those sunny skies. Now, we're going to keep the keen breeze across Scotland overnight, as well as Northern Ireland. That will push in some extra cloud. Northern England seeing that cloud as well, but the cloud in the south clears, and as that clears and winds drop out, well, we'll see an extensive frost and temperatures as low as -4, -5 Celsius in sheltered spots. Also, some fog patches, mainly around river valleys, sheltered rural parts, and they'll fairly quickly lift, I think, during the morning. Then plenty of sunshine for the southern half of the UK, a marked contrast compared to today. But cloudier skies for parts of northern England, especially the northwest, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, along with that keen breeze. It's going to be milder actually in the north, but a bit colder further south, with temperatures closer to average here. But again, with light winds, plenty of sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. And that's the way things continue for the rest of the week, actually. The southern half of the UK will see sunny spells by day, but increasingly fog forming overnight, and that fog will be dense at times, perhaps continuing through the day on Friday and Saturday in places. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, breezier and milder.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. It's quite a day in Westminster with yet more evidence of a potentially lockdown-breaking boozy bash in the Downing Street